Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the AgeTech Connect podcast, where we dive deep with innovators, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders to figure out how technology can make the world a better place for older adults and those that care for them. Today, I'm having a conversation with Dave Hogan from ELEHEAR. In our conversation, Dave and I will be exploring the impact of hearing loss on quality of life, health, and safety for older adults. Further, we will explore how accessible, human-focused, AI-driven technologies are shaping the future of hearing loss solutions. Dave, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming out.
Daniel, thanks for letting me join you in your guest this morning.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. Before we get into any of the specifics, tell me about yourself and tell me about your background.
Well, I've been in the consumer tech industry for more than I'd like to admit, but over 30 years, and have been part of and had the privilege of being part of technology evolution and how it affected audio devices, the implementation of Bluetooth, and now AI, and how it, in the end, makes better consumer tech that helps people in their everyday lives. So it's been a rewarding experience and something I plan on continue for a long time.
Is there anything specifically that wanted to make you get into technology that impacted older adults?
It's funny, it's more my experience was I was working for a cellular infrastructure company
Mhm.
who happened to buy a consumer accessory business, which was kind of new for them and new for me. And the more I got into the forward facing end of technology and the user, I saw how exciting that was, to the point where I have a phrase I use almost every day, and that is the beauty of our business. And the exciting thing about our business is that it changes every day. The
Yeah,
worst thing about our business and the challenge of our business is that it changes every day.
of course. Yeah.
So, from a technology perspective, is you just have to stay ahead of the curves. You need to be at the forefront of innovation, or consumers won't gravitate to what you do. And I've had the ability to work with companies and colleagues and very smart people that has helped us in that journey.
And because you're a tech first guy moving into age tech, you talked about the tumultuousness of the environment changes every day, right? That's a good thing and the bad thing. But is there anything else that surprised you about getting into age tech specifically? How older adults, adopt technology or just your personal experience with it?
Well, if just between you and I, there's obviously an age gap. And as you get
Uh-huh.
older and as you evolve into, what shapes our lives as we, go through our journeys, I become more attuned to the challenges people have across a myriad of areas. And of course, I had aging parents, one of which suffered from hearing loss. So that throws you into the environment that so many of your guests probably can relate to, as well as trying to find a solution for someone they love or someone they care about. And that's been the motivator over the last few years, because when you see what you can do when improving someone's hearing, that if you don't have an issue, you take for granted, but it's
Mhm.
probably next to speaking what your most important sense, and that it's your ability to adapt to life, and if that's impaired, how do you engage?
It causes a lot of issues that a lot of people don't think about. And that's why I'm excited for this episode today, is because I think a lot of people don't think about hearing loss a lot. I mean, obviously, it's so present amongst older adults, and everybody, it's like hearing aids are almost a cliche at this point, of an older
Right.
adult. Like if you're dressing up as an older adult for Halloween, you got the hearing aid in, right? It's such a common thing, but people don't think about it or really consider the implications of it. So, from a personal lens or just from your lens and working in this area, can you explore the effects of hearing loss and give our audience a bit of a background on how that progresses and how it really impacts a older adult?
Well, hearing loss is one of those things that sneaks up on you.
Mhm.
It's not just I can't hear this or not. It starts gradually, and it really starts in reshaping your way you participate in your daily life. People stop going to dinner parties, they stop going to restaurants, mainly because it's very exhausting to follow those conversations in noisy or environments that make hearing a challenge. They stop calling doctors because a phone call experience to make an appointment becomes somewhat tedious and it's frustrating. And so that's where the social withdrawals begin. The everyday occurrences that they face with their problem, that it kind of makes them step back and say, "Ugh, it's hard. I don't want to participate," opposed to really getting to the root cause of it.
So what I'm hearing is it's not a lot of people think about the primary problem, which is, oh, I can't hear. Oh, I can't hear if the phone rings. I can't hear if somebody's walking up behind me. But a lot of the issue that you're correcting for is like the secondary and tertiary problems, which is, the social impairment, the embarrassment, the kind of loss of dignity that can come with hearing loss.
Correct. And the journey for this is kind of amazing. Is most people who are identified with hearing loss don't react to it until some 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So they will go through a myriad of life experiences or miss those
Mhm.
snippets. It could be a child event, it could be a grandchild event, it could be in a graduation, we're at that time of the year that you're missing this interaction with the people around you. That's one. And then, there's always the stigma of
Mhm.
hearing devices. It's always been a thing that people didn't want to be acknowledged that they may have a hearing problem. When they
Yeah, I want
don't
to.
sometimes realize it's more impactful when they keep going, "Pardon me? Huh?" You
Yeah,
know
that's true. That's
so
true.
it's kind of a mixed bag there. So,
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was talking about. I mean, like if you want to look like an older person, you put a hearing aid in, right? It's that signal of, oh man, like I'm not as young as I used to be. And a lot of people don't want to come to terms with that.
right.
Mhm.
What we try to do at Ella here is make our devices accessible to all, but also make the experience of starting your hearing journey an easier entry point, and
Yeah.
and take some of that illusion of that it's a challenge away from the patient, and give them a way
Yeah.
that they could better experience life.
Make it easier for them to access the hearing solutions earlier on, right? Because I
Correct.
think, you don't want to jump straight into that kind of like pale, skin colored, really medical looking hearing device that really makes you go, oh man, I'm getting older. Before
Yeah.
we go into exactly kind of how we've historically addressed hearing problems and where you guys are going with Ella here, I do want to dig a little bit more into, I think a lot of people might not connect with the experience of that early stage hearing loss, right? Like maybe 10 years before you even get a hearing aid and you're going into social situations, you're saying, what is that? What did you say? Excuse me. Can you walk us through, maybe through the lens of your parents or through any of your customers that you worked with, like what might that situation look like? What social cues would you miss out on?
It's normally the first indication is in multiple conversational environments.
Yeah.
So whether or not you're at a restaurant with a table of friends, you're at a party with family members where there's multiple conversations going on, there's background noise happening. That's when people first kind of try to follow the conversation as it kind of goes around the dinner table. So in most cases, those are the oh wow moments for many. And then what many people don't understand, in the United States alone, there's 60 million people aged 12 and up that suffer from some degree of hearing loss. And that is different levels. And then our daily lifestyle today, devices like you're wearing, like I'm wearing,
Yeah.
add to those potential problems down the road, where hearing in general has always been associated, oh, it's an aging thing.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
no, there's where you work, the environments you work in, concerts, sports stadiums. I'm sure everyone is familiar with, even on your Apple Watch or your iPhone, if you're in a loud environment, it prompts you to says, "Hey, you're in a decibel rating that could be damaging to your hearing." So all this stuff around us contribute, but it's some of those social moments that people understand, like, wow, something isn't right. Or it could be in a very important business meeting. You have 30 people around a
Yeah.
conference table doing some critical decision making, and you miss a critical piece of it. That part of it's embarrassing, but it also has impact across, both your professional life and,
Yeah.
ultimately your personal life. So,
I was able to experience this firsthand a little bit. There was one time in my life where I got double ear infections and it like, swelled up my ears a little bit. And I spent like a week where it was just like minimal, like everything was just dulled from a hearing perspective. And it had way more of an impact on my ability to exist in the world than I would have ever imagined. I mean,
yeah.
just again, being a young person walking around going, sorry, what was that? Like I found myself just in conversations going, I have no idea what this person is saying, and just having to nod because it's embarrassing to say, "Sorry, what was that? I can't hear you." Like, you
Yeah.
ask 3 times and then eventually you just give up and nod and smile and hope that that's sufficient for the person standing across from you.
No, it's a perfect example. And then what if it's a very important conversation that,
Mhm.
you know,
And a
you know,
smile and a nod doesn't quite work out. I was
no,
doing
and they
clinical
they
care at
might
that
think,
point.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I was doing
So,
clinical care at that point, and patients would be like, "So, what should I do to dress my knee pain?" It's like, okay, that's not gonna work out. I think everybody should have an experience of, wearing just earplugs for, a week or even a day and just see how that impacts every aspect of your life. Because I think it would open a lot of people's eyes by closing their ears. There's some sort of tagline in there, but, I think that would
yeah.
open everybody's eyes to really how big this problem is.
Well, and the residual effect across many aspects of your life, people don't tie that together.
Yeah.
And, it's not just this life's pleasure experiences of laughing with a friend or sharing a story, it's the physical impacts as well. So,
Mhm. Yeah, so speaking of that, are you familiar at all with the link between hearing loss and dementia development? Because I've heard stats, but this is certainly not my area of expertise. But amongst individuals with hearing loss, one of the main predictors of whether or not they'll go to develop, some sort of cognitive impairment is whether or not they get some sort of hearing solution. Are you familiar with those statistics?
yeah, there's studies that say as high of you have a 30% chance of early onset dementia with hearing loss. A lot of that stuff is still being validated, but
Mhm.
there is a scientific tie to hearing loss and cognitive decline for sure.
Yeah. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't address as well because they say, well, I'm okay with the social thing. I'll just sit around at home. Maybe you can justify that. But I think the vast majority of people are not okay with, a significantly increased risk of dementia or really any form of cognitive decline.
No, and maybe when you're 20s and 30s and you have a busy life or busy career, going back to your home and kind of
Mhm.
being by yourself, that's an escape. When you age, your children leave you, your grandchildren are around, and then you say, "Oh, I can't even socially interact like I once was." Then it becomes a whole different story. Then they say, okay, well, I can't participate, so I'm just going to stay back. And then that's when depression, the loneliness, the isolation that attribute to all these other things as well from a social and, medical perspective, the decline impacts many areas of your life.
Yeah, so considering it's such a huge problem, but as we've talked about, there's a big resistance to actually adopting hearing solutions. Can you give me some background on how has hearing loss been historically addressed? We've talked about those like kind of pale skin colored hearing aids,
Yeah.
right? What has the technology been over the last 20 years and where does it go wrong?
Well, for most of the history of hearing technology, approach has been to make things louder,
Yeah.
which sounds helpful until you're in a noisy environment, such as a
Hmm.
restaurant. Every sound in the room is amplified, not just the person you're talking to. So the speakers playing music around you, the clanking of dishes, the conversations going at tables around you. So if it's simply amplification, it's all risen. That's the moment people realize that the device isn't working for them.
Hmm.
And maybe then it's not worth wearing. And then ultimately it goes back to the drawer
Yeah.
and or the box or where you bought it from. So the environments where people most need support are the environments where basic amplification fails. And once the device fails multiple times for a user, it's very hard to convince them to keep wearing it.
Mhm. I have a lot of patients, I see them, I go, "Do you wanna put your hearing aids in?" They go, "Nah, don't even bother. It's not worth it," right? Because
Yeah.
again, we're gonna be in clinic, we're gonna be in noisy environments, and if I'm just hearing all of the background noise that I don't wanna hear, except now it's louder and more grating, it's like, why would I want that? I still can't hear the person that I care about.
Yeah. Well, hearing is a very complex thing,
Mhm,
as is the whole human body. And people don't sometimes understand. They see a television commercial at night saying, "Oh, amplifier, for under $100, so I could better watch TV." But
mhm.
it may enhance you in that one scenario, but it doesn't go across every aspect of your life. So when we develop products, it's more back to the consumer tech piece. It's even though it's solving a medical problem, but how do we make it a lifestyle product that you can
Yeah.
carry on all aspects of your daily life, not just hearing per se like a conversation you and I are having.
Mhm. And in addition to making it more easy consumer facing product, what about the form factor of prior products? Because again, they seem pretty standard to me, like something that hooks behind your ear and then goes in there. How are we kind of solving how people interact with it from a physical perspective?
Well, that still are the most effective devices being
Yeah.
sold behind your ear. But for example, we have a product that looks more like a conventional consumer product, like a
Yeah.
AirPod that goes inside your ear. You wear it like a earbud. So from an aesthetic standpoint, someone would just think you're just wearing a headphone, not a hearing device. So aesthetic is important in like anything we do. We're all vain to a certain extent,
Mhm.
and size of the device, the look and feel, the color, that's all important. But I think once the user finds the solution that works for him or her, then that look and feel becomes less important because the solution is more important. But that being said, as a consumer facing company, we have to look at wearing style, we have to look at comfort. That's the other thing, when you wear a hearing aid, you're
Yeah.
wearing it essentially your waking hours. So the device has to be designed in a way that it's comfortable to wear because there's certain wearing styles that create ear pain and ear fatigue. Yeah, your ears can get fatigued, and sometimes if you even use a headphone, you sense that, I just have to
Yeah.
release them for a while. So that's important. So the wearing style of the conventional medical looking device, as you said,
Mhm.
sometimes is much easier for people to adapt to. So once you start going inside someone's ear, then it becomes not only a personal preference thing, but it's like, what is the best solution for that person? And sometimes it affects the level of loss that you have determines some of the wearing styles that you can use because there's so many variables that go into what we do. OTC hearing aids, that's for mild
Yeah.
to moderate hearing solutions. If you have profound hearing loss or near deafness, it's a whole different way of diagnosing you and coming up with a solution that fits you.
Yeah, so it sounds like the really important thing is to have a spectrum of solutions, that can kind of address your problem and meet you where you're at, right? So whatever you need, we have a solution for that. And on
Yeah.
that note, we've touched on what you guys do at Ella here. How did you guys come to be? What was the big problem that caused you to enter this market? And then how did you develop from there?
Well, our founder likes to talk about we've kind of done a backward approach. We weren't a company that set out to design
Hmm.
hearing aids.
Yeah.
We are actually at the core, the foundation of our company is an AI algorithm company. So
Interesting.
we've
Okay.
built the technology on sound processing and technology and kind of evolved into taking those sound processing solutions into hearing aids. So we've kind of done it in a different way. So
Where did y'all
um,
start, if not with hearing aids?
we started with sound processing firmware software for other devices,
Hmm.
PCs, mobile devices across some very big names that people would know if we mentioned those.
Yeah.
And that is how the company evolved from its start. And then in 2022, when the FDA opened the door for over the counter, the technology we had and the solutions we were providing in other devices, we were able to even enhance more in a personal
So
hearing
what's
device. So
Yeah, tell me about that transition because I wasn't familiar. So previously, hearing aids had to be a prescription, and now you could just like buy them off the market. Like, when did that shift happen? You said 2022?
2022 is when the FDA
Yeah.
opened up the opportunity for mild to moderate. That's a very important piece though.
Hmm.
So it's mild to moderate loss, and our products can only be sold to adults 18 and above.
Yeah.
So prior to that, you'd see an ENT, a medical doctor, then most likely an audiologist who would do a test, evaluate you, and get you on your journey. The
Yeah.
challenge, which a lot of that experience was, if you had mild to moderate loss, many of the prescription hearing aids were kind of, for lack of a better term, a little bit of technically overkill because
Yeah.
they're very expensive and it may be a little too much for someone who's starting on their hearing journey. So in many of those cases, they would be turned away from the clinic and sent
Mm.
back out and
So they wouldn't even be able to
without a
get
solution.
a hearing aid or any kind of
Well,
solution.
a lot of it was sticker shock. So
Oh, yeah.
they looked at themselves and say, It's not that bad. So how do I justify thousands of dollars?
Mhm.
I can hear you fine, Daniel. I will wait. So, and that's
Yeah.
some of what I mentioned earlier, that 7 to 10 year journey. They may have started off with a mild impairment, but the likelihood of that getting worse over time is very likely. So, what we try to encourage is early acknowledgement, early
Mhm.
help, and embrace the technology so it can embrace your life. And as your journey evolves, maybe OTC will be the answer for you moving forward. Or, if a more sophisticated product is needed, so be it. But a lot of our users today are those traditional prescription users and that have come back, looked at our product and say, wow, it's for a fraction of the cost and the easy ability to get into a new product. It fits my level of loss. It's really opened up the opportunity to help more people, and both from an accessibility of products, but also the affordability of them as well.
And that's what I love about this age tech space is it by creating better solutions that are more specific and more efficient and less expensive, we can really make these technologies more accessible because it's like to think that people with mild to moderate hearing loss really didn't have a reasonable solution up until the last few years is really disappointing to hear. To imagine somebody goes, oh, I kind of have an issue with hearing, but I'm not going to spend a few $1,000s getting this, really high grade medical device for my ears. So I'll just wait. So now the fact that people can get those hearing solutions without having to overcome all those crazy barriers is really good to hear. But it's sad to know that that wasn't a thing until the past few years.
Well, and the other thing the OTC category has driven, it's actually forced the industry to evolve the product
Yeah,
lines. Believe it or not, a very short time ago, hearing aids didn't have Bluetooth. You couldn't answer
that's
a
amazing,
telephone
yeah.
call. You couldn't stream music. You couldn't do a lot of things. OTC was one of the big triggers for that because they took all this friendly tech or the tech that people want to use every day and kind of incorporated it in the products.
The incumbent solutions had gotten kinda lazy, I imagine. You know, I imagine it was a
Well, as a
thought
professional,
process.
I'm not gonna comment on that.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I'll say it. No, but I would imagine, historically you'd be able to say, oh, well, older adults, they don't care about Bluetooth. They don't want to listen to music. We're just going to give them the medical device. They'll be happy with that. And then you guys get to come in as a bit of a disruptor and say, people actually do want that. Older adults are getting pretty tech savvy these days. They want to be able to take a call on their hearing aid. They want to be able to listen to music on their hearing aid, watch their videos on their hearing aid.
In social media, the people then aren't observant of their elder relatives and older friends because
Mhm.
they do want to engage with the younger generations, and they
Very much
understand
so.
that device sometimes is that engagement. So they
Mhm.
will take the time to learn the technology because they want to be part of it. They want to be part of either maybe one of their grandkids' sporting life, or maybe they're have somebody in a band or musical in school plays and things, and sometimes they're not in the same location. So, video or remote watching is critical. So they're more tech savvy than people give them credit for. But
Yeah.
a lot of times it's by they have to, not because they want to. They have to learn it. So,
Mhm. Well, I mean, and I imagine the adoptions for hearing solutions is becoming much easier because people are growing up with hearing devices that connect to their phones. And it's almost like a no-brainer for people that have grown up in this era of, yeah, just like I put my earbuds in, it connects to my phone. Like that's how I'm used to listening to things. I'm not adopting something completely new when I have to put in some sort of hearing solution.
yeah. Well, you brought it up earlier with hearing plugs. That's a huge trend now in concerts.
Oh, yeah.
And you would think, okay, isn't that counterproductive of being at that experience? But no, the younger generations are seeing the effects of these loud environments, and wearing earplugs doesn't make the experience any less enjoyable. It just makes it a little bit more tolerable for a longer period of time.
Yeah,
In the same vein, it's protecting them in their hearing. What musician do you see perform now that doesn't wear monitors to protect their hearing?
that's true.
So, I mean, it's really an evolution that if people really were more observant and they would look at more people around them, the stigma will go away because it's a quality of life thing. It's
Yeah.
in the year 2000, when I'll date myself now, when
Mhm.
Bluetooth technology became a thing, Bluetooth headphones became a thing.
Yeah.
The response from the markets at the time were, "Oh, no one will wear those because it'll look like they're talking to themselves."
Yeah.
And for a period of time, it was very awkward for some people who used them and would make a phone call, and the phone would be in their pocket or in their purse or a bag, and people thought that very strange
Oh, yeah.
26 years ago. Now, roll the camera forward, everyone from 8 years old to 80-year-olds wear AirPods or some other type of headphone, and
Yeah, you
either
go on a
talk
walk,
on their
everybody's
phone
just
or
talking to
escape,
themselves.
yeah, or
Yeah.
escape from their neighbor because they
Mhm.
want to put this on.
Exactly.
So, when we talk about the technology evolution timeline, you look at that and how those things have enhanced entertainment. Now we talk about devices like ours that not only will enhance your entertainment, but enhances your overall life experience as well.
So let's get into what you guys actually do at ELEHEAR. So we've again touched on a lot of these things, but where have you guys really differentiated yourselves in terms of there's a few elements I can think of right off the bat. You guys have the AI driven sound processing, which really seems like the cornerstone of your product. But then you guys also have a lot of really interesting things as far as the form factor, the variation of the product lines, the fact that it's over the counter. So wherever you want to kind of address it first, what does Ella here provide that's unique and
Well,
beneficial?
well, we talked about a little earlier that it's
Yeah.
making something louder is really not the efficient way of
Mhm.
improving hearing. So our approach has been, how do we make speech clearer? So it's not just the amplification, it's the
Mhm.
processing of the voice or the sound around you. How do you block out background noise? How do you enhance the conversational speech? So we do that through our AI technology in our application called VotePlayer. That is our AI engine, for lack of a better term. So it's the real time speech processing, and it's the foundation of everything we've we've built. AI can now do real-time sound processing in a very tiny device, and it connects to multiple devices. Some of ours products are, as example, ELEHEAR Delight. It looks like a consumer technology device, but it's a hearing aid. So it afforded us the ability to take the core foundation of our company in sound processing and enhance that experience, which was more than just making things seem louder. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you're at home and maybe the dog's barking and your kids are screaming, and your response to television is, oh, just turn it up louder or turn the stereo up louder. And your perception is, I hear it better. No, you could hear it over the
Yeah.
things around you, but you're not necessarily hearing it better. It's how do we take the technology and incorporate it in a way that it enhances the sound processing of the product.
So does your algorithm focus primarily on voice? Because I would imagine it's kind of tough to thread the needle because there are times where I want to listen to the conversation I'm having, but there's a TV in the background. But there's also other times where I want to listen to the TV and there's a conversation in the background. Like, so how do you strike that
Yeah,
balance?
I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to attempt to tell you how
Yeah.
it breaks down, but each sound around you has a different level, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you don't have a hearing problem, your brain in your ears kind of adjust to those environments. Sometimes we call it selective hearing, that you want to
Mhm.
block out maybe your personal
Yeah.
conversation in favor of the television show, or the song playing on the radio. But it's the AI and how it recalibrates itself in the machine learning piece of how it learns your environment and how it then enhances the sound as you would naturally hear it. In layman's terms, that's the power of the technology.
Yeah.
And the one big thing about Ellie here, opposed to some of our competitors, is all that is developed in-house.
Mm.
So our engineers do all our own algorithms, they do all our own AI development, and we don't use third parties for any of that, which most of our competitors in the OTC space, license an algorithm for their product. So our position has always been to stay at the forefront. As we started our
Yeah.
conversation with, you have to be leading the innovation in the technology, and that's at the core of our forefront. So if we say, okay, this is best in class today, we're already working on what that's going to look like 6 months from now, just to stay ahead of the competitive race, because whoever has the best mousetrap is what people kind of gravitate to.
Like,
And
yeah.
compare, a health device to a mousetrap, but in the end, it's what and how the product performs for the user.
So from a user perspective, the real benefit to y'all developing all of your algorithms in-house are that once you buy an ELEHEAR device, that the technology is going to keep up with you and with your needs and stay on the cutting edge rather than potentially if somebody has bought a third-party algorithm, they have that algorithm and it stays as is until maybe they buy a new one and they're just
Correct.
trying to get packages off the shelf and not really keeping up with the cutting edge.
That's a fair
Yeah.
assessment, because what we also do is our continuous improvement plan on, say, a current product. We have several mechanisms how we manage that, and that's user feedback for sure, reviews,
Mhm.
challenges that somebody might have. But we also have what we call as our ambassador group, and these are a group of several hundred users of hearing devices who have been using hearing devices long before we became a company. And they help us evaluate new ideas, new technology, new products. We take that feedback very seriously, and some of it we do incorporate. And the beauty of our products, we can send those updates over the air to enhance those products. So if you bought, say, an ELEHEAR Beyond Pro today, a year from now, some of our competitors, that product is obsolete based on what they introduce. A
Mhm.
lot of our improvements, we can enhance the product from a software perspective and send it right to the device or update it through our app. So we look at this as we're in this journey together,
Yeah.
and that a customer buys the product, how we've always differentiated ourselves is our service model. And to keep people happy, you have to keep improving their experience. And that happens to be the product that they're wearing. So
And I love to hear that you guys are
this,
developing this hand in hand with the user because this is a big problem specifically in age tech. Obviously, it's something that any company would want to do, but for some reason, age tech companies have a tend to kind of disregard the older adult as we kind of disregard the older adult in society. Say, oh, well, we'll just give them something, right? So to know that you guys are really sitting down with the user and saying, how are you using this? Where is it benefiting you, and where is it going wrong? And respecting the user experience, I think is a great sign for y'all as a company and where, our hearing solutions are going moving forward.
well, our journey from somebody who looks at us as a company to consider our products, you can go to the website
Mhm.
and you could do a test to get some idea of your loss. Then, if you choose to buy the product, once you receive it and you download the app, through the app, you could actually schedule time with one of our audiologists
Oh, very cool.
who will go through the tests with you and then help you with the customization of the device for you, the user. That platform has been very successful for us in onboarding and getting the customer, the client, the patient
Yeah.
to a place where the product works for them. The hearing aid experience, we didn't talk about this much earlier, is, it takes someone roughly 45 days to adapt to a product. It's not like
Yeah.
buying headphones and saying, oh, the music sounds good, so it worked for me. The mechanism of the brain accepting the device and all the feedback that certain hearing aids have, that the decibel ratings, the inclusion effect. There's so many medical reasons that pose challenges for the adoption of the device that it's very important. And I think some of our competitors underestimate the importance of this, still that personal interaction, helping that person through the onboarding of the product, the setting up of the product, and then making it, the best performing experience they can have. And takes a lot of effort.
Mhm.
We talk now, we almost touch one to one of anyone who
Oh,
buys a
wow.
product. So at least once in their journey. So, we're constantly recruiting for, audiologist professionals, trying to enhance that customer service experience. Those are reflected in our reviews of the product. It's reflected in the sales of our product. It's essentially put us in the number one slot of OTC hearing devices sold on Amazon. It's not from a price point because our price points range from $369 to $599.
Yeah.
So they are still, in some cases, an investment for people,
Mhm.
especially older people who may be on a fixed income. Still more affordable than $4,000 to $8,000 hearing aids.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
we like to communicate that hearing is a journey, and as a company, we have to be part of that. And as you mentioned,
Great.
when you age and people go away in their lives, people are busy, children have children, and their children, they need attention.
Mhm.
And
Everybody does, yeah.
attention sometimes in the realm of fixing or adjusting a product that makes their life better, it's a value for us to be able to provide that. And frankly, it's helped us build, a reliable and respected brand by doing so.
How did y'all come to that pivotal business realization? Because it seems so simple the way you describe it. It's like, yeah, when we give somebody the product, we want to actually make sure that they can use it and use it well and use it to the maximal degree. But for some reason, a lot of companies don't do that. They want to believe that, oh, I developed this widget, and when I give somebody that widget, they'll use it and they'll love it, and that's it. And we don't have to be hands on anymore. Is there a moment that gave you that realization, or was it just innate in the company that, hey, when we give
No,
somebody this, we want to make sure?
it's been there from the onset because if you look at, let's remember the core hearing business
Yeah.
is very much a hand-holding experience. So
Hmm.
you go to a doctor or a hearing professional, you go to an audiologist who tests you, who measures you, who uses certain devices to establish your amount of loss. So that's a very personal experience to get to the root cause of your issue. So we knew when we're going to say, okay, we're going to build a product to sell into those type of scenarios, you know, we weren't naive thinking,
Mhm.
oh, out of the box, everything's going to be perfect. So, because
Yeah.
if it was that easy, how come it hasn't been done prior? So
Mhm.
the intent was always, how do we provide like level of service on that onboarding and the fitting of that client? And it actually has enabled us to even put more effort into it. And you'll
Yeah.
see even more things coming from us in the coming months, that the service level will become more and more important. Because as you mentioned a little bit earlier, if somebody spends $600 or they spend $6,000, that's a significant investment either way. They want to have confidence as a consumer that that product is going to live with them for
Yeah.
a good period of time. Once upon a time, like in the mobile phone space, the marketing direction was get that user to replace it every year and a half.
Yeah.
And it still, for the most part, is that. When in theory, the device is fine, but let's chum them with new features or something that they may or may not use, but it sounds cool.
Yeah.
But that's a decision on like the haves.
Yeah.
Hearing, you either have it or you don't. And if you're missing, you want to improve it. So
Mhm.
we kind of have to take that experience a little further and a little bit more intimate with the user.
Yeah. I imagine being hands-on gives you a lot more opportunity to innovate and iterate on the product with a lot of really innate ground level knowledge. To do a little bit of a pivot, in addition to the way that you guys do the sound processing, do the technological innovation, I want to talk about, kind of the progression of form factor you guys have in your line of products, because that's something that from a person who's a medical provider, but so I see a lot of the more medical grade hearing aids. I don't interact with a lot of the over the counter ones. I think it's really cool that you guys have an earbud style headphone, right? And then it kind of progresses to looking like a little bit more medical and then a more traditional one. Did you guys have those different form factors from the start? How have patients responded to that? Because I think it's a really cool innovation.
We'd like to believe we're at the forefront. So as we've developed products from a practical sense to provide a solution, then through, as I mentioned earlier, our user base, you get a lot of feedback from what they'd like to see in a product, or have you ever tried this? One of the things that resonated a lot was an active lifestyle. You probably know seniors or even older people, still play golf, still play tennis,
Mhm.
pickleball, go to the beach. Traditional hearing aids in the design don't hold up well to sweat and other
Oh yeah.
activities. So when we developed the light, the whole idea was, got an IP67 rating, so it's essentially waterproof, water resistant,
Mhm.
it's dust resistant, sweat resistant. So it's a device that not only is your hearing solution, but it could be your active lifestyle solution as well.
Yeah.
And when you talk about design, what's interesting about that product, you know, one of the main ideas was to widen our demographic so it did look like a hearing device, but still provided that. So could we go to a younger user? Traditionally, 50 and above was, where the sweet spot that most hearing aid companies focus on. But
Yeah.
as a consumer product, and I'm not going to quote one of the consumer products companies, but as a product company, you want to own the customer from birth to death as much as you can.
Mhm.
And in a way, be able to provide solutions as they go through life. So the idea of implementing or introducing, a more consumer friendly looking device that people wouldn't have the stigma of wearing a medical device, that was the intent of it. What has been very interesting in our evolution is
Mhm.
many of the people that buy that device today buy it as a second hearing aid. They don't
Yeah.
buy it as the primary. So they still like the Rick style, behind your ear for
Mhm.
practical everyday purposes, but for certain aspects of their life, exercise, sports, they switch to the more earbud style because
Yeah.
it's comfortable, stays in place when you're doing, physical activity. It's less medical looking,
Mm.
as you pointed out. That's been a learning curve for us now. We thought, okay, it'd be a wider demographic, which has happened, but it's also
Yeah.
been people are duplicating, they're buying multiple devices for different parts of their life, which was exciting to see. So as we look at designs moving forward, size is always the key, small is best, right? So
Yeah.
but how do you do that in a practical sense where like AirPods, like I'm wearing, they have a hearing feature as well. But if you're using that feature, talking like we're talking, listening or streaming music, the battery life goes from optimal
Yeah.
to minimal at best. If you look at our Delight product, it's basically the same but more. Our battery experience is 13 and a half hours from the hearing device piece, and then 10 hours from a hearing and streaming device. So it's
Oh, wow.
essentially 3 times what these are.
Yeah.
And so, you could position it as a way it is your hearing device, but it's your lifestyle product as well.
Hmm. Very cool. So, we touched on a lot of things in this realm, but like, where do you guys think you're going in the next 5 years? So, maybe more broadly, where is this space going in the next 5 to 10 years? And then how does that impact ELEHEAR specifically in the next 5 to 10 years? Again, we've touched on, making it more of a lifestyle piece. The trend in the market of your traditional older adult is now a more active older adult. They don't
Yeah.
want a product that allows them to sit in a nursing home. They want something that allows them to get out in the real world. What other trends in the market do you think will be really important?
I, as we all do, follow certain things and such and social media. I follow this 60 and above crowd that start
Mm.
businesses. So,
Yeah.
there's this whole realm of people who either aged out of their formal career because of age discrimination, or
Yeah.
they think, oh, you're getting older, you can't do it. And they start these new companies, very successful, and they have no plan on either quitting or retiring. So when you look at what we do is AI will be table stakes for the category. It's
Mhm.
not that now. Now it's a differentiator, but in 5 years,
It's got to be
if you
standard.
don't have it, you're obsolete. So the question is, do you go with a company like ours who develops this from scratch,
Mm.
or in form factor, as you discussed, is a big consideration. Devices that evolve with our lives, the design has to evolve. So we're constantly going, okay, what's the best physically attractive solution that we can provide? How could we build a product in a way that fills it with our AI engine from a performance standpoint, but also how do we do that in a way that the package is just one that it's either virtually invisible or it's done in a way that the stigma of a medical device is no longer.
Yeah.
And I think the long arch for LA isn't just hearing health, it's intelligent hearing. So it's
Okay.
like, what can we do with the platform to enhance all aspects of hearing, not just hearing loss, but
Mm.
hearing enhancement for people who, like you or I, who may have no degradation. But in certain environments, you want to know you're not missing a beat. We go back to
Yeah.
that meeting, even though you have perfect hearing health, if you're in a negotiation and people are
Mm.
throwing things around the table, you want to be as crisp. I mean, there's been a movie about this out there, but it's not that you want to spy, but you want to fully understand the conversations that are happening in a room. And that sound enhancement with a device could add to that, let alone, improving your hearing if that's what you're in need of. So it's a big new frontier out there. And, medical is evolving every day. You're in it and you talk to a lot of different professionals who do a lot of good things. In one aspect, we're complementing or trying to help people with one of their most important senses
Yeah.
and keeping them in the game, life's game longer in a more active and, contributive way.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what we're all about here at Age Tech. We just want to, keeping them in the game. I love that phrase, keeping them in the game for longer, living the lifestyle they want to live for as long as they possibly can. So it sounds like you guys are making great strides in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. It's fun. In the end, it's when you help someone, there's no better
Yeah.
feeling when especially with hearing, when you provide a solution for someone who has struggled,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden you see it on I mean, they just light up. There's really nothing more fulfilling. And then to know that you do that to thousands of people,
Hmm.
it's rewarding, and it's good for all of us.
That's what's so great about this space is you get to really help people in a super meaningful way. And I love to see what you guys are doing at Ella here. And I look forward to seeing what you guys will do in the future. We are pushing right up against,
Yeah.
our time here. Anything else you want
No,
to
I just
cover?
wanted to thank you for letting me
Yeah.
participate with you today. I look forward to continuing our conversations as this whole story evolves, and the category, it just keeps getting better. Our intent is to provide better solutions for people that need this type of product, and that's our goal, and we'll continue to work on that.
Well, thank you, Dave, for coming out. And I know that you guys will be at the post acute care and senior living workshop on
Correct.
May 27th at the Thrive Center. That's coming up soon in like less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if anybody listening is around Louisville on May 27th and you're interested in what Dave's been talking about or what he's been doing with Ella here, make sure and check them out. Head to that post acute care and senior living workshop. Dave, where else can the people get in contact with you or get in touch with you?
I guess the most effective way is to look at our website,
Easy.
www.elehear.com. Full of information, videos, product related stuff. They have a YouTube channel. So a lot of good information on product performance and what we do there. So just drop us a line, and we're happy to help or answer any questions for anyone.
Very cool. Well, again, thanks again, Dave, for being out. Look forward to hearing more about Ella here in the future.
Thanks, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.